Tear down the red tape in the state. Every bit of government bureaucracy, overreach, overspending, overregulation. No, we're done with it. And Frank LaRose, you're going to be great as an auditor and leading the way on that charge. We got to make sure every public expenditure from state level to county level to municipality is at least publicly available on the blockchain for people to see and understand how their money's being spent. I want this to be the top state in the country to be an entrepreneur, to live the American dream, to build and grow a new business, not as some kind of just academic solution to enhance our GDP numbers. That's not a bad thing, but that's not the whole point. These are vital improvements to our economic and social fabric as a state. So we're no longer a state where a little league team has to shut down because they can't find a local company to sponsor them because that company left for Florida. So that we're no longer a state where a single mom has to think twice, or a married mom, for that matter, has to think twice before having another kid for the fear of cost of a new stroller or buying a new car. A state where every parent has that bone-deep conviction that their kids will go on to live an even better life than they did. I will lead Ohio to become the state of excellence in America. But to get there, we talked about this with a few of you earlier, to get there, we also have to lead Ohio to be the state of educational excellence in America. All right, and here we have a crisis in our country. I don't use that word lightly. I'm not prone to histrionics. Something's not a crisis, I'm not going to tell you it's a crisis. This is a crisis where 75% of 8th graders in our country are not performing math at a proficient level according to international standards. 70% of them aren't proficient in reading. We now have kids in other countries where English isn't even their first language, performing better on English proficiency than our own students right here at home. That's unacceptable. Speaking as a parent of 2 young boys in Columbus, Ohio, where we're raising them today, speaking as an Ohioan, speaking as an American, I refuse to just stand by and watch idly as China laughs at our gradual decay into oblivion. No, we're going to turn that ship around for America, starting right here at home in Ohio. All right, we're going to lead Ohio to be the top state in the country when it comes to teaching our kids how to excel in the basics: math, reading, writing, financial literacy, physical education, civic education. We're going to be the state that leads the way. There are some basic things we need to do to play catch-up. Make sure that we use our dedicated base of police officers to ensure that we have at least one of them in every school in this state with the proper training needed to be there to make sure our kids are safe in schools. We got to make sure our kids are showing up to school. We do have a chronic absenteeism problem in our state, and it has only gotten worse after those disastrous COVID-19 school closures. I will pledge this to you as your next governor: never again will we bend the knee to a cheap knockoff version of an Anthony Fauci who allowed our public schools to be shuttered while our private schools remain open. She owes those kids an apology, and we're not going to let it happen again in this state. We will stand for the achievement of our students, from the sports fields to the classroom. Excellence in every domain, from music to the arts, from math to science, to every sport a kid wants to play. We want this to be the state where our kids pursue excellence. And to do that, not only are we going to play catch-up with the rest of the country, take our school choice programs to the next level, so even homeschooling is a viable option for parents who require it, all right? That's what we're going to do to play catch-up. But here's where we're going to lead the country. We're also going to be the state that makes sure that our public schools are equipped to compete with the best of those alternatives by being the first state in the United States of America to implement merit-based pay for every teacher, principal, administrator, and superintendent in our state. We will pay for performance. To be clear, our best teachers are not being paid as much as they should be. Our best teachers deserve to be paid a lot more than they are right now. I talked last week when I launched the campaign, I'll tell you about her tonight, about Mrs. Kinney, who maybe Frank referenced a little bit in his opening remarks. She was my 6th grade teacher. I went to Robert E. Lucas Intermediate School in the Princeton School District, went to public schools through 8th grade. She changed my life. She saw in me potential that I didn't know I had in me. And she lit a fire under my feet to work harder, to get my act together and say, I know you can do this, but you need to actually be pushed harder to achieve. It was a magnet program at Rellis, unfortunately a school that's closed today. She died a few years ago in a tragic accident, but I still remember her. We need more teachers like Mrs. Kinney, but we're not getting the very best because there is no meritocracy in compensation. One of you asked me beforehand, what does that actually mean? How are we going to measure that pay? What about in poorer parts of the state where kids are starting from a lower baseline? And what I told you, who asked me that question? There you are. Thank you. What's your name, ma'am? Christy asked me that question. Thank you. And you're a teacher? And you had friends, you said you had a few friends who were teachers who had that question. Well, if your friends had the question, I'm sure others did too. And so I thought I would take a chance to address that tonight. To be clear, the way we're going to measure it is start of school year to the end of that school year. So what is the rate of improvement in a given classroom? Actually, there's a greater opportunity to show an even greater improvement for the areas of the state that are starting from a lower baseline. So merit pay means you're going to not only attract the best teachers from around the rest of the country to Ohio, because we're the only state that has it, but those teachers will have an incentive to go to the places where they're going to have the biggest impact, even in the communities that are struggling, because they're passionate about lifting those kids up. Another of you had the question about what does that mean for measuring it? How are you going to measure that? Well, here's one of the ways we're actually going to do it. There's 3 components to merit-based pay for being a teacher. Number 1 is objective outcomes for our students. And yes, is that measured through testing? I don't think testing should be a bad word. Yes, it is. But number 2 is parental assessments. How satisfied are parents? Every parent knows what the right approach is for their son or daughter, knows whether the teacher's responsive or not. And number 3 is peer assessments from other teachers and principals in that school, because you got to work together in the school to have a common mission of improving our kids. Use those 3 factors, merit-based pay tied to actual outcomes for the students, actual peer assessments from the other people who work at your school, and also the parental assessments. Now your teachers are actually being paid for performance, like they are in South Korea and in other countries that are doing better than us in education. We're going to be the state that leads the way, because we owe it to our kids and their generation to make sure they have the best educators leading them to excel in math and reading and writing. And we won't forget physical education either. Think about this. Integrating PE starting in kindergarten. We got to start at a young age. We're going to bring back the presidential fitness test, by the way, and that includes the pull-ups. That doesn't mean everybody's going to pass it, but you got to set a standard to hold ourselves to. Yeah. What do you think, Bonnie? We bring a pull-up bar to the next Lincoln Day dinner and make me practice what I preach up here. That apple pie was too good. It might have been good to do it before that. But the truth of the matter is the best way to save on health costs in the long run is to have that healthier population in the first place. And it's not just physical health, it's mental health too. There's a deep crisis of mental health in our country, that epidemic of depression, anxiety, fentanyl, opioid usage, suicide. It's time to put an end to that on our watch. The attention deficit disorder spreading amongst our kids. We will get the cell phones out of the classroom. It makes total sense. There's no reason not to do it. We will finally get that job done in Ohio. We got to address that deeper crisis of purpose and meaning in our young people. So many of our young people in our country right now are hungry for a cause, hungry for purpose and meaning and identity at a time in our history when the things that used to fill that void, faith in God, patriotism, hard work, family, those things over the last 4 years all but disappeared in America. We've got to fill that void with the real thing, with our own vision. We beat Joe Biden and Kamala Harris or whoever they put up. They had one candidate identifying as another. It doesn't really matter. We beat them. All right? We know what we were running from. Now the question is, what are we running to? Right? The true thing. What is actually real and true? Individual, family, nation, and God beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate if we have the courage to stand for what is right and what is true and what is good. And we shouldn't apologize for it. We're a country where we can speak the hard truths and be proud of it, proud of who we are, without being in fear of being censored on social media, without being told to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told. The truth that God is real, that there are two genders, that fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity, that reverse racism is racism, that an open border is not a border, that parents determine the education of their children, that the nuclear family is not a bad word. It is the greatest form of governance known to mankind, that capitalism is the best system we have to lift us up from poverty, not socialism, that there's 3 branches of government in the United States, not 4, that the U.S. Constitution is the strongest and greatest guarantor of freedom in human history. These things are true. And the reason they were controversial for the last 4 years isn't that they were false, it's that they're true. And we should have the courage to stand for them by reviving civic education in our young people. And that's what we're going to do in our country. That's what we're going to do in this state. We got to teach our kids to be proud of our country and of our state rather than ashamed of it. That means replacing woke indoctrination and victimhood psychology with actual U.S. history and actual civics lessons. Right? Teach them the real thing. People say, is this just sort of jingoistic patriotism without teaching them real history of our legacy of slavery or whatever? No. I want the whole thing. You got to do it in an age-appropriate way. You start in first grade and second grade, certainly kindergarten, maybe third, fourth grade. You teach them about the basic ideals in the first place. You got to know what the ideals are before you then get to high school and introduce some of the ways in which we may have fallen short of those ideals. We definitely fell short of those ideals at certain points along the way because we're human beings and not gods. And human beings are imperfect, and we always will be. But that we would still rather live in a nation that has those ideals and falls short of them than to live in a nation that has no ideals at all. Notice how nobody ever calls China or Iran a hypocrite, because to be a hypocrite, you had to have the ideals in the first place. True civic education that instills in our kids the rich texture and history of both our state and our nation. And I will tell you, as governors, some basic things we just got to reinstill in our schools. Say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning, just as we did tonight, with a moment of silence, as we did honoring tonight a great patriot from this locality. And on my watch as your next governor, we will make sure and we will require that every high school senior who graduates from high school in the state of Ohio will have to pass the same civics test required of every legal immigrant to this country, because you got to know about your country in order to be proud of your country. In order to love your country, you must know it in the first place. And then lighting that fire under the feet of our primary education system, K through 12 education, lays the foundation for improving higher education in this state. I want our state to have the best universities in the country. I think we can. See, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. As I said, I was the kid of legal immigrants who came here with nothing. I went to Princeton Public Schools through 8th grade. I went to St. X, a Jesuit high school in Cincinnati, for high school. I went to Harvard for college. I went to Yale for law school. I founded successful companies, and I did it while marrying my wife, Apurva, who lived her version of the American dream. She grew up in Michigan. We knew we didn't want to raise our kids in New York. It's why before having kids, we moved back to Ohio. She's now a throat surgeon taking care of cancer survivors at the James Hospital in Columbus. She's lived the American dream. And we're proud of our path to the American dream. For us, it went through four-year college education. But I also understand that our path cannot be the only path. To the contrary, as your next governor, I want to make sure that we also provide a path through vocational education, 2-year and 1-year and 6-month programs, to be a plumber or a mechanic or a welder or a builder or a carpenter. I met Sevi beforehand here. Where are you, Sevi? You still here tonight?
Yeah, over here.
There you are. You got an apprentice program to be a plumber, is that right?
Yeah.
How's that going for you?
Doing great.
It's great. I mean, I think that we have a shortage. I mean, Sevi's great. I mean, how old are you? 21 years old. Give this man a round of applause. He's working in and out. And you know what? I don't know for sure. I'm not making any promise. I think you're going to make some pretty good money doing it. And I hope you're not taking on debt through the apprenticeship program. I don't think you're going to have to do that. Paid for. There you go. See? We have an opportunity to integrate, you're 21, but to integrate those earn while you learn programs as early as high school. I don't want to put you on the spot, and if I'm wrong about this, call me out and tell me I'm wrong. But do you think you could have even integrated some of that even earlier? You're 21. Do you think you could have handled it even when you were 17? Great. And you should earn money while you're doing it. Do you agree? Yeah. So integrate those earn while you learn programs into high school. Now we make it even easier for more people like Sevi to start that hard work earlier on to get that head start on the American dream. And I don't call these professions the trades. I call them professions because that is what they are, that deserve the same degree of dignity and respect as somebody who goes on to become a lawyer or an investment banker. It's not that one of these is better or worse than the other. You can fall into the other trap and say, oh, those are the elites, and we don't like them. It's not that one of these is more elite than the other. They're all elite. We're all Americans. We're all Ohioans in this state. We're proud of it. So we want to be the state where we have the best universities for every young man and woman who wants to go on to become an engineer or a doctor or a software engineer or an entrepreneur, while also providing the best possible path to somebody who wants to go on to become an electrician or a welder or a mechanic or a plumber at a time where we need more of all of those things. All right, the state where every path is open to every child. The state where the paths to success are plural. The state of meritocracy. That is what a true meritocracy is about. America was built on the idea of meritocracy. A nation that recognized that every one of us, every one of you, has your own unique God-given gift, distinct from every other person in the world. And that we are still the nation that allows you to achieve the maximum of your own God-given potential without any man or system or government or bureaucracy standing in your way. That is what made America great the first time, and that is how we will make Ohio great again, all right? This is just the beginning. I don't want our metrics to just be our GDP growth metrics. We're going to grow the economy in this state, and we're going to be proud of it. But my metrics for success as your next governor are the number of people who move into this state versus out of the state. Texas is number 1, Florida's number 2. Right now, we're number 38. By the time I'm done as your next governor, we're going to be number 1 on that list. The state where we have more children who are born in the state into families, and the state where those children choose to remain in this state long after they're gone and graduated, okay? I believe it's possible. All it requires is believing in that American dream right here in Ohio again. The state where that American dream isn't just some vague, nebulous idea in flowery language, but grounded in actual action that makes people believe in capitalism rather than to be spiteful of somebody else's success because you're participating in it with real skin in the game. I'm a father, I said, of 2 sons. One's 5 and one's 2. And my message to the 2 of them and to every son and daughter of Ohio, from Zeta to Sevi to every other son and daughter of Ohio in this room and around our state tonight, is that the American dream is your birthright. A world-class education in your field of choice is your birthright. Success is your birthright. Freedom is your heritage, and excellence is your destiny. This isn't a small vision for our state. It's an ambitious vision because that is who we are, both as Ohioans and as Americans. We are not victims, we are victors. We don't whine, we win. That's who we are at our best, all right? We hungered for the unapologetic pursuit of excellence. That's what made America great the first time, and it is how we'll make America great again. I'm not a career politician. I'm not going to give you some sort of pre-prepared slogans. I joked about this in my announcement speech. If you didn't like something that I said, I can't blame my speechwriter because that's always been me, okay, for better or worse. Sometimes it gets me in trouble. But I'll tell you what I am. I am a businessman who has lived the full arc of the American dream. I am filled with gratitude to our country and to this state that allowed me to achieve things that I would have never imagined possible before 6th grade with Mrs. Kinney. My parents would have never imagined possible when they came to this country 45 years ago with no money. And I will fight every day to pass that American dream on to my kids and to yours. I will fight to the end for this state. I'm here for the second time in 6 months. I'm going to visit all 88 counties this year. I'm going to visit all 88 counties next year. I'm going to visit all 88 counties every one of the 8 years that I serve as your next governor. Because I want to listen to Ohioans. I want to listen to all of you. I've learned so much from so many of you tonight. I'm dead serious. It beats the consultant bullet talking points is just 30 minutes of walking around and talking to all of you, learning about a little bit about what's going on in Athens County, which we're going to come see you guys. I was back there a few weeks ago. We're going to come back again, understanding what's happened to property taxes in that region, in part because many of the people voting for those property taxes aren't actually the ones paying it, which is a problem we got to fix over there. Thank you for taking me into the details of how that's playing out. I don't want to govern from a bubble. We want to build a big tent coalition. In a big tent, we say tonight. I like this. And thanks for the new location. You guys, Bonnie, we didn't give Bonnie enough credit. Bonnie, stand up. We'll give you a round of applause. Thank you. You've been great. Thank you. We talked about goats the last time I was here. The first couple of Hocking County. I like that. You guys were great. Sorry for being I'm sorry. I'm glad that we drew more people than expected. I'm sorry you guys had to change up the location, but this is fantastic. Thank you. I love that. Thank you. Thank you, my man. We want a big tent coalition of not just constitutional conservatives like us in this room, but really all kinds of Republicans, and not just even all kinds of Republicans. We'll take independents. We'll take the libertarians, even orphaned Reagan Democrats or other orphaned Democrats who may not be Democrats. They're actually Republicans, but they don't know it yet. There's a lot of them, to be honest with you. Were you one of them? Welcome to the party. I love it. And anybody else who finds themselves politically homeless, right? You're welcome. We have a place for you in this movement, a seat for you at this table, as long as you believe in the basics. If you care about economic excellence and educational excellence in this state, then we're on the same team. If you want your kids to have the same American dream that I have lived, have the same shot at that American dream that this country and this state gave to me and my wife, then we're on the same team. And we might not agree on everything, and that's okay. We actually love our diversity of thought in Ohio. It's actually a beautiful thing. I told you I came in from Florida. I've spent a lot of time in Texas, and I love those states. They have attributes going for them. But we're not going to make Ohio the top state in the country by pretending to be Silicon Valley or pretending to be Florida or Texas, for that matter. We're going to make Ohio the greatest state in the country by being the best version of ourselves, of who we really are. The state that led the way the first time. The state that embraces the fact that we all have neighbors, especially in Athens, who disagree with us at times. But that, too, is part of what makes Ohio great and an embodiment in the right state that ought to lead the way. Not just for Red Nation, but the red, white, and blue nation, who we really are. That is Ohio at our best. We got to practice what we preach even when we lead by example. To the extent we have a primary this year, we'll figure out in a couple months if that ends up happening. If we have a primary this year, I welcome that. Because competition breeds innovation. And even our strongest competitors are going to have ideas worthy of our consideration. We don't need to beat them up over it. In fact, include them. Be hungry for the best ideas so we can include them into the way we govern and lead this state. I invite every Ohioan, black or white, man or woman, urban or rural, and even Democrat or Republican, to work with us to take this state to newer heights than we have ever seen before. So that 10 years from now, when we're sending manned rockets to Mars, when we're curing previously incurable diseases, when we've got our electric grid so abundant with energy, powered by nuclear energy, you know what they're going to say then? Only in Ohio. That's who we are. That's who we've always been. The state where we will look our kids in the eye and mean it when we tell them you get ahead in the United States of America and you get ahead in Ohio with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication, and that you know what? You are free to speak your mind at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what we are running to. And with your help, that is what we're going to revive for America starting right here in our great state of Ohio. Thank you, Hocking County, tonight. May God bless you and your families, and may God bless our United States of America, and may God bless our great state of Ohio. Thank you. Go bid on that silent auction. Let's make some money for Hocking County.